Oh.
You know. The one thing that I wanted to mention is the Ag Committee's meeting tomorrow night. And they're going to make a determination, I think, of when the dates would be that they'd like to meet with this committee, as they've indicated. So I won't be able to give you that information until after tomorrow night, after they've had their meeting. The cemetery.
Looking at December probably, or maybe January.
Yeah, it'd be December or maybe January even. I don't know. I
All
have
right.
no idea until they make their decision.
Keep my schedule for it.
On the cemetery and, one, I was going to get a hold of Sarah Linda to come in and, make a little
Mhm.
presentation to us. But I didn't want to do that until I found out about the ag, protection thoughts from that committee. So I'm holding off on that. The one thing I thought we covered, but I guess we haven't, moved it forward is, and I know it was either Tom or Chuck that talked about the double lot coverage for 2 frontages. And I should say double lot, I should say double frontages. And that is something that I'd like to, we come to a conclusion on it, but I don't remember exactly. Because we said we'd have it residential, wasn't it
CBA.
one of you two that may said residential and
I think it was,
Chuck?
it came up with the ZBA because.
Chuck came up with a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did it, adding residential.
Yeah.
She knows I did.
I knew the ZBA had an issue with one of their applications. And this is Bob and probably John said, we got to change that. It's crazy to have, especially if it applies to, was it a non-residential? Or was it, why
Yeah,
does
I
it
think
apply to
that was
residential?
commercial, and I think we
Yeah.
agreed at the time to do it for just residential.
That's
And
how
and you
it's.
inserted the residential,
Item
In there.
H there. Yeah.
and
Tom,
do you have that before you?
Jen, your group brought it up.
Yep. So I think this would take care of it. Concerned about uptown and some of we do have lots of double frontages that it would
Right, for
save
residential.
them having to go to the ZBA. for-
That's been a thing since, I was on the zoning board in 2002, and
Yeah.
from there on, it seemed, even before that, probably had problems with that. I always thought it was strange. So in the second sentence here, where it says, where double frontage lots are permitted, is that, I think that's where you inserted residential, isn't it? Where
Mhm.
residential double front lots are permitted?
I think it pertained to just residential.
Just
That was
residential.
the recommendation.
Okay,
But the way this is written now, it says double frontage residential lots are prohibited. If we're adding that word residential where you got it, Tom. And that doesn't read right though, right?
No,
I mean, if
Mm-mm.
we're
What's
not
that?
prohibited, then
permitted.
They're permitted.
so that's gonna take care of it, then inserting the residential in there?
No, well, no, we just have
Where
to,
are we adding it then?
Oh, okay, it's not there.
The
yet.
second sentence, it says where, and then it says double frontage lots, where,
Where are you?
Where?
A, B, C, D?
I don't know, I just got it on the email.
it's H. It's in H.
H,
Yeah,
okay, that's
yeah,
what.
Yeah, but I think you have the
Yeah.
word residential.
Yeah, 174-19H.
yes. Double frontage. Okay, yeah, we don't want to put residential lots are
Maybe non-residential.
prohibited, right? Double frontage lots are prohibited. We can work on the wordsmithing, except in, all residential zones or something like that.
Right. So it just covers residential, not commercial, because commercial. would be
Commercial, we
once in a
want
great
to-
while, and that
It would
needs to go
affect-
before the zoning or whoever to, because each one will be different in that regard.
Was it Chris was looking for, the ZBA was looking for clarification
Okay,
because
Or at
that
least-
rule was screwing them up.
That's where we heard it from.
I had a copy of the request.
I remember the application. It was a commercial.
was it German Brothers?
No,
We have one coming for Pierce Brook that would create a double frontage lot, which is now would need a variance.
That's a
because-
residential?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Doesn't make
it's
sense.
pointless.
No.
It really is.
Okay, this is what came from Chris
Trying to think which
Jensen.
zone.
I can't recall which one
This
was
is what
either.
came from Chris Jensen.
Back in June.
Sounds like it's not even.
Is that up on 332? Trying to think.
No, you know what this was Brian Prince,
I thought this was Westbrook's piece,
Old West. No, this was the Old West
County
property.
Road 10
This was Brian Prince, who has a frontage on
on, yeah,
Whitefalls Road
Yeah.
and a frontage. He wanted to
Westlake.
create a frontage on Westlake Road.
okay, but we've also saw it on Westbrook's old piece in County Road 10. He needed a variance from this, relief from this, up by the solar.
Yeah, but you're talking a residential one, right?
This
Yeah.
was a
That
residential.
Commercial one that she's talking.
Yeah, I'm
about.
talking
Yeah,
commercial,
this
that's
would-
the one I've seen.
Yeah. This
So
was
Whitefalls and Westlake,
Brian Prince owns Westbrook's old house.
Mhm.
Used to
On
be
Westlake
Doc
Road.
Carpenter's
Oh,
place.
yeah, County Carpenter's house, yeah.
It's kind of brown
And Westbrook changed the driveway.
and Westbrook
Yeah.
changed the driveway to Whitefalls Road.
Yep.
And Brian wanted an entrance off of Westlake Road because his address is Westlake Road. And I think that's what initiated this, now that you
Okay.
sparked my memory.
Oh, so that's where, because we were wondering what, that there had to be history with this, what,
And that was
Okay.
the issue.
okay,
So
interesting.
let me just expound a little further, because I believe what we were told at that meeting was that this was a county issue. But if it's a county issue, it was because County Road 16, you wouldn't be allowed to have two road cuts.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to have two road cuts because I was on County Road 16. And it's a county road and the county doesn't allow it.
Right,
Brian's instance is a little different because he wanted a road cut on County Road 16.
and then a town.
And he
road.
wanted a road cut on
Got
Whitefalls,
it.
which is a town road.
Okay,
So, I mean, my way of looking at things, I would have to say, who cares? What's the problem? I understand not having two road cuts on maybe County Road 16 because the county doesn't allow it, but having one on County Road 16 and one on Whitefalls Road or any other situation like that, why? What difference does it make? What do we care, really?
So what we need is a paragraph that allows
What was-
it in the residential and prohibits it in the non-residential, right?
And what was the origin anywhere
Here we go.
of this statute?
Oh, that was probably written before.
This is the section that we're talking about, and then I think what we were talking about is just inserting a couple of words right here.
yeah, non-residential parcels. Or where employed.
Oh, wait a minute, no, except,
Wait, it's.
This whole thing is here with the exception of this. This is the existing town code. This is 179-18H, 174-19H, with the exception of the 4 words here in the blue box.
So we wanted to read for residential?
for residential.
Yeah, it's
not
for
non-residential.
residential.
Yeah,
Except for non-res, except for, okay, that would work.
there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Or say double
Tom,
front
is this
lots
what
are
you were
permitted except for non-residential.
Up on that screen, he just changed it.
Except,
Is that agreeable to everybody in the committee?
The planning board shall have a condition for a plant in the front yard, okay, yep.
Right, and that also gives the board, I mean, you still have discretion if there's some odd constraint with topography or safety.
Then it goes back to the CBA. Well, essentially all corner lots are double frontage lots.
That was simple, didn't it?
They are.
I don't know why.
But I think we were
Westbrook
looking
changed that initially.
You're looking
Road
at
back here,
more,
road in the front.
yeah, north, south.
Because he made it a walkway.
Okay,
Down
is
to the
this,
lake.
is this something that, you know, the committee's in agreement with? If it is, I'd like a motion on it so that we can move it forward.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Is any discussion? Any discussion? We'll
Perfect.
move forward and vote on it. All those in favor,
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried.
Who is this young lady that's joining us with your presence?
Hi
Oh,
there, hi there.
Hi.
I'm Kate Silverstrom Jensen. I'm from the town manager's office. I do our finance and that type of thing, but I've also been working closely with Lee on the cemetery committee, and I wasn't sure if you guys were gonna have any questions. He couldn't be in attendance this morning, so it sounds like you're not ready quite to start that conversation today, but
No, we actually are.
It's next.
All right.
Yeah, Gary's gonna be
Oh,
excusing
well, yeah.
himself, but we will be talking about it.
So I guess I've covered everything that I would like to cover while I'm here this morning. And, you know, is there anything else that we need to discuss before we get into cemeteries with Shauna?
Just one thing, Gary, I think we had discussed the possibility of tightening up our sidewalk regulations as far as maintenance and all that. And I think Sarah had done a nice review of where in our current code, we have those regulations. And that was sort of would be a starting point for us at some point. So maybe the subsequent meeting, we can talk about sidewalks.
Okay,
If the rest of the committee's in here.
It's been something we've been talking about for years.
And we're getting more and more sidewalks.
Yeah.
More Pierceboro.
I had a question about procedure for the change of the double frontage language. Would we then have it on the 13th town board agenda?
13.
So-
We don't meet the 13th.
Is that the
No.
meeting?
no, it's the
There is
20th.
one.
It's 20th. So it'd be the 20th.
I would think you would, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to,
That'll have to go through the county.
You would need to set a
Okay.
public hearing
was gonna
for the
say, we
January
just
meeting.
Right.
okay, so we'll set the public hearing on the 20th for the January meeting.
Yeah, but probably not the organizational meeting because it won't make it in time for that. So it'll probably be the end of January, but
Okay.
anyway.
Okay,
It's,
all right.
it's not critical.
No, that's for darn sure. Anything else then?
No,
No, I'm sorry I gotta leave you and, you know, I'm sure Sean will get you to get all
everything
these
turns
things
out all
wrapped
right.
up.
Best wishes.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, where were we? in section? That was draft.
So has everyone read through this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So the sticking point, I would say from last meeting is whether or not this warrants a separate committee. That's kind of where we ended, I believe. Is that right?
Was one of the issues.
That was, I mean, that was a major issue.
Whether cemeteries warrant a committee or whether this legislation warrants a committee. What are you saying?
Whether cemeteries needed its own committee.
Okay.
And backing
What
up,
what does the state of New York say? Apparently, state of New York says the town has got to take care of cemeteries.
Correct.
yes,
And
we
the
do have to.
organization no
Is this a
longer is
model
doing it.
law from the state?
Yes, it is, one that Doug had put together.
Mhm. From, was it Malta?
Yeah, there was another.
A few other,
that-
yeah.
A few others that had,
Mhm.
we kind of put together pieces.
So Canandaigua as a municipality should comply with whatever the state rules are.
We
And
do
have-
currently comply in that the town maintains the cemeteries. However, we don't currently have a particular
Formal.
formal procedure for that. It has previously fallen under parks in partnership with the historian's office. And as we know, parks is growing significantly. And there has been some conversation about a group of volunteers that would be, this would be their primary function, would be to spend their time on what the needs are at each of the town cemeteries, which isn't necessarily been the primary function for the Parks and Historians Office.
Okay,
The state doesn't say that you have to have a committee that oversees all
It
this.
says you are allowed to create if you'd like to.
To me, there are two different things here. One's the rules and regulations, which we have nothing right now in our code anywhere that talks about rules and regulations for cemeteries. So that we absolutely have to have. The committee itself that would meet periodically, as Leif was suggesting at the last meeting, would oversee and make sure that our cemeteries were in good shape. I mean, we'd be give that committee the responsibility once a quarter, once a half, go out and look. And
Correct. We've employed
So-
Peter Ellison a few years now.
Yeah,
To
it
work
goes way
on
back.
headstone repair for a while.
Yeah.
And one of the suggestions Peter has made is that we establish a inventory of the cemeteries and the headstones. And that way we know what we have. Ray has worked very hard on it, but also to add to that, the quality of each of them. And that would help us then determine each year. Previous years, the town board has budgeted a small amount for cemetery maintenance and preservation, separate from lawn mowing.
Well, my own feeling, I'm not on your committee, I'm just kind of an observer, but my own feeling would be that since this came from Leif, our historian who was involved with our history committee, that the history committee quarterly, when they have one of their meetings, do this, what's outlined under the cemetery committee, that the cemetery committee be kind of a subset of the history team or whatever we call them, in much the same manner as we folded the drainage committee into the public works committee. So that would be a suggestion I would make, that rather than having a separate committee, have the function be part of that group. I mean, they're the ones that really have, the most interest expressed from what I've heard over the past few weeks here. So
I think the big issue is not the committee or regulation, it's how much the town board's going to allocate for this. Are we gonna mow, or are we gonna restore, and isn't,
we
that
have,
could be a bottomless pit,
well, we have
pardon the pun.
mowed.
6 feet.
Not bottom one,
6 feet, sorry.
We fed a lot in 6 feet. No, we mow, we take care of the cemeteries now. If a group were to be formed and they came up and said, we need XYZ amount of money, next year's budget, town board would have to decide whether they want to put it in or not, just like now. I mean, that's what we do now. So, I mean, it's not, it could be a 6 foot deep pit, but the town board could say, we're going to go 6 inches.
I think that's the most critical issue, is how much can
Yeah.
you spend a
The
lot.
town board would definitely control the
Oh, yeah,
faucet.
yeah,
on
they
that.
would.
Yeah,
No.
no, not.
Well,
at
none of
all,
our committees
exactly,
do really.
Exactly.
I believe the budget was 22,000 for 2022. That's
Well, it
what-
sounded like it fluctuated over
Was
the
that,
last few
was that
years.
what that,
Because I think I wrote down that it was, I thought I heard one year it was 10,000, another year it was
It bounced
12,000.
around, depending on what had to be done.
Right.
One year we Hunt Cemetery over here, we,
With
put
the
up split
fence.
rail fencing, did a lot of work.
Mhm.
That might have been the higher
Yeah.
rate of expenditure. So
I mean, I like your idea, Terry, that rather than have an independent committee just for cemeteries, I like the idea of kind of rolling it into the historical
Committee.
committee.
well, they're the ones that seem to have that's where the thrust came
That's
from.
the
so.
interest, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the history committee is primarily focused on cultural resources. At this point in time, they have quite a few projects that they're working on, that they have expressed in conversation that they don't feel they have the time to address to the cemeteries because their primary focus is on other cultural preservation projects throughout the town. And that what they had expressed was that a group primarily focused on cemeteries would be better equipped to make that their primary focus. And the history team was not sure they could primarily focus or address this.
Well, as Lee made the presentation, he said, if it were a separate committee, that perhaps they meet quarterly or every half year or something like that. So it's not like this becomes their entire focus. This is more of a adjunct to what they're doing. And we've been presented as a cultural, situation that, this is part of our culture, our history, our
Exactly.
where we came from as a town. So, I mean, to me, it just makes sense to do it that way.
And
Of course,
then
I'm
to-
not on that committee, so I don't have to.
And then, but to piggyback on that, Terry, is that if we're only appropriating, pick a number, $10,000-$20,000 to maintain the cemeteries, and the majority of that is being contracted out for the maintenance of the cemeteries,
Yes.
what's the committee gonna be?
There's not a lot of decision making.
Yeah, exactly. What's left to decide? I mean, it's,
Well, they would probably, I'm thinking out loud, they'd make a recommendation. We get into budget season in July, August, that we've seen these things, these problems, and we've researched it. Here's what it would cost to do it.
Yeah.
Give it to the
Like they
town
did with
board
that.
to, the, put
Want
it in or
to
don't.
put a fence on cemetery, we'll
Right.
give you $5,000.
Right,
And
just
next
like
year,
that.
it's gonna be a fence around John's cemetery. What do we call John's cemetery?
that's the, what is it, the
The
Wolverine?
Wolverton.
Wolverine.
Wolverine.
I like Wolverine. That's a good name for it.
Well, maybe we'll put a fence around there.
They're Wolverine, you want a
I
sturdy
think-
fence with Wolverine. I'll tell you.
Yeah, recently it's been, I think, just recognized as John's Cemetery.
Careful.
Yeah, right.
You always have a place to go.
Is there room left?
I see there's two aspects to cemeteries. There's the historical, which we really brought to my attention, the significance of, the markers and who were involved. And then you've got the grounds themselves, which is the mowing and I think that the mowing and all that is probably done by Park and Rec, and that can probably be part of, it's just another area they have to do. Easy for me to say, because I don't know what the staffing requirements are.
It's contracted out currently.
Okay, it's contracted out, so.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be, that's something that I don't think the cemetery committee would want to get involved with, and that's something. So then you're left with a historical significance, and as Terry said, I think with the committee we already have, we could just dovetail this thing in.
So we have experienced a little bit of problems with the maintenance of the cemeteries. And Sarah Linda had expressed in a large email, which we can definitely share with this committee, her desires for a little bit more attention to detail. And there's actually been a request to separate the request for mowing from parks and cemeteries. So there would be a different requirement for the contractor who's mowing the cemeteries because of that additional need for just more careful maintenance. We've had a few incidences where headstones may or may not have been damaged. That's natural, it happens, but there has been a request from the group of people who would like to see more attention. And I think the idea is that the Parks Department is growing and really is not having the time to address the attention needed of the
They have a
cemeteries.
separate procurement for just the cemeteries and tighter specs as to what they have to do
Yeah.
and can't do. And they may have to pay a little more for that service, but
Exactly.
if that's what you want to see the care taken,
If I could go back to the
Oh.
not the maintenance piece, but the combination of the committees there, and let me just touch on that for a quick second with you guys. Sorry, I was on the phone with another call. The history team is actually a Citizens Implementation Committee project team that was designated. It's a very specific project team. It is not a committee. It's a project team that was initiated to meet a certain goal of the comprehensive plan that it reports to the CIC. So if we're going to put more responsibility on that team, first of all, the one thing I said to Gary is I would strongly encourage that maybe we have Sarah Linda come in and meet with the ordinance committee, if that's going to be the recommendation of the ordinance committee, because I believe they have other primary goals that they're working on that probably do not include the cemetery piece that we're talking about. So at least to have a dialogue before that decision is made and have some conversation about that. And then second piece of that is if that is in fact the route that we're going with that, then we may need to look at that, whether or not that is still a project team or whether there's greater responsibility and that needs to be an established committee. So
Yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
I can
The
see
people
that.
that have been giving or coming forth with this information are from that group. So, I mean, they have an interest in seeing that the cemeteries are maintained. I mean, it sounds like they're the overseers already.
in terms of well, yes and no. So Leaf, as the town historian by default, has been, and the same with Ray Henry, has been the primary person who has done the overseeing of the cemeteries. The project team was specifically created for the variety of different things relative that they're doing. You know, they have a web page actually on the here. Let me just share it with you, just so we can all see what I'm talking about. So this is actually their web page on our website for the history team, and you can see their purpose, and they have two objectives that they're working on. Relatively, it's relative to encouraging public awareness of Canandaigua's local history. And then there is another piece there, preserve the local history and encourage protection of historic sites, right? So it's much more than just cemeteries. There's many different things that fall under that. The piece in terms of the Leaf talking to the history team, and then the piece with Sarah Linda, she has been a main conduit, and she's also been involved with the CIC, but she's stepping back from that now to I think hopefully still focus on some of this historical pieces. And then here's the history team members. It's Ray, Sarah Linda Hooker, Leaf, Cody, Lois, Nancy, Joe, Jared's on that team, Donna, Richard West, and Ed Varno. So it's an interesting mix of people that bring a lot of experience to the table, where they can certainly talk about cemeteries and some of the historic knowledge of the cemeteries. Whether or not they want to get more involved in terms of the planning maintenance, that's what I'm saying. I think that conversation needs to take place, because I've heard conflicting things, that some of them may not want that, or some of them may be interested in it. So that's where I just think there needs to be additional dialogue.
That's fine. It just seems though, if those two that you've highlighted in blue there, I mean, cultural sites and all that, presentation we've made, cemeteries are part of that, so it falls within that to me, you know. Now,
Well,
whether they agree or not, that's up to them, but
Right. And here's the current projects that they're working on, right? So they're working on the Squaw Island pictorial history, the Hun Cemetery rededication. They worked on that. The middle school social studies project, the videos that they're working on, the historical context statement, the Westlake legacy video clips. That's a project that they've been working on. That was like the stuff, even like with Tishner Point. They've been very successful in New York Preserve grants. We've just gotten the second one for that. They're doing historic mapping, the steamboats in the town hall, each of the conference rooms being named. And then the project that they're really excited about is this geocaching project that I think they're working on. Plus they do the monthly newsletter. They do pieces in that. So they've got a variety of different things that they're working on currently for their group. And again, it's a volunteer group, right? We're so fortunate with all of our volunteers. They contribute so much to all of our different aspects, including you guys.
Well, it sounds like we have to hear from Sarah Linda.
Yeah.
So in response, my question is, I've got some comments about the code itself.
Me too.
Do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to hold off until after we have this conversation? I mean,
I think we have time to talk about the
some code
code.
issues?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. It sounds to me like regardless, we're going to need to do something.
Right.
Because we can't have the
Absolutely.
history team under the CIC take this
no,
on.
we could
And we
make it a
can't, and we're
separate.
not necessarily feeling we want to do cemetery, but we need to do something to address either direction we want to go. So I think it's important to talk about what you actually want them addressing. And what the allowances would be.
When you say they, the
The
committee,
group, however you define that group.
well, what's being proposed is that we set up a cemetery committee. And what we don't know is who the hell is gonna be on it.
Oh, yeah, or
Is it
you fold
part
it
of the
into-
history group or what?
I mean, looking at that list of topics that they were addressing there, doesn't sound like the local history project team is a short-lived thing. Sounds like it's gonna be around for quite some time, so maybe it should be formalized and recognized as a local history committee instead of project team,
Exactly.
you know, separate it from CIC. and Maybe if they're willing, or a few of them take on responsibility for touring cemeteries quarterly or every 6, whatever. And report back to whomever, that, hey, we see a problem here. you know.
It becomes the town board's problem.
Yeah,
John, we're gonna go this.
Tom, I'll follow you. You said you had some.
Okay, yeah, if everybody's got a copy. First of all, I'm amazed that we're getting into this kind of detail. And what is unnumbered page 4 under headstones. Item D1A. My suggestion is we should show a picture or a sketch on A, B, and C, so you know exactly what we're talking about. When we talk about the depth of a headstone, what the hell's the depth in the length and the height? I guess I can, if, I can't imagine a 6-inch height headstone.
Is this the foundation?
I don't know what the hell they're talking about, so we gotta clarify this with sketches or something.
Correct, it's the base. So a headstone typically will have a base that is
Oh,
set
yeah.
into the ground and then a headstone that
So
is
that-
set on top.
So that's the
base
foundation.
mix.
Correct.
Well,
Oh, yeah, they're talking, you're right, you're talking about the base.
Yeah, we better show a sketch, so
Identify.
we know what we intend there for A, B, and C.
Well, this ties into, if that's what we're talking about, ties into an issue I had, which talked about the overall height of the headstone and bases combined shall not exceed 34 inches. That is item number C2, right below headstones. And my question was, why are we saying that they can only be 34 inches high? I mean, what if somebody wanted to build a 5-foot tall one? I mean, what do we care?
If they pay for it.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right. I
Well, you
mean,
get down to like Academy Cemetery.
We'll maintain it though.
Well,
Yeah,
that's another good question. Yeah, who's gonna maintain it then?
Once you have a 5-foot,
well,
Somebody 100 years from now.
I
Won't
assumed,
be us.
I assumed, and it sounds like wrongfully so, that people would expect that over hundreds of years, your headstone would deteriorate naturally and from ashes, from dust to dust.
But we're dealing with
the person.
the white man's quest for immortality here. Even just creating monuments to somebody that's dead is in itself pretty goofy when we plow the Indian burial grounds.
Right.
Okay, so culturally or historically, this is, depending on who you're talking to, how important it is. We've all got birth and death records.
Yeah,
So this is a monuments to me are a goofy exercise, as is burying but
but if
That's a
somebody
whole
wants it, who
Yeah,
are we
they
to say
wanna
they
pay
can't,
for it.
who are we to say they can't have it?
they want to pay for it in perpetuity.
Yeah.
fine. That's a long time.
Yeah,
Uh, But anyhow,
Yeah, if you want perpetual care, maybe there should be a section on that.
okay,
No, that you go down to like Academy Cemetery and you see headstones down, down County Road 16 and Central Point Road. I mean, some are this side and some are this side. I
Right.
mean, it's
It's a matter of
whatever you want.
yeah,
Really.
what people want, right?
I mean, maybe not a big mausoleum built there, but you want a 5 foot. Just, I imagine it was cut and pasted from someplace else. I don't know where, but.
Yeah, it was in Article 2, which is this whole section that I think, from what I'm gathering, probably you guys may have the most concerns. Well, probably Article 3 though, too, on the preservation piece. But Article 2, where it talks about the cost of lots and interment, right? My pages, sorry, pages just moved on me here. Oh, and then Article 3 gets in. But a lot of this, it really, in terms of like the placement of the new headstones and that kind of stuff, that's not necessarily an issue for us. And maybe that needs to come out for now. That would need to be in place if the town were to have to acquire another cemetery where we were continuing to do interments. We'd have a limited number of interments now that we need to do at Academy because the parcels have been sold, the plots have been sold. But the rest of it, really, when you talk about the preservation and stuff, those are probably the bigger issues for the town for now.
Yeah,
So if we were to take over the Wells Curtis Cemetery,
Pine Bank,
Pine Bank,
Yep.
right,
then you got a
Then we
new
would-
headache.
We have a different situation.
Yeah,
So-
that would
Town
be,
did set up a contract with Pine Bank and we do financially have an agreement with them starting just this year, I believe,
yeah,
was formalized.
And
To
that's
try
really-
to help them stay solid.
yeah, it's an effort to try and keep them
Correct.
solvent so they don't
So
say,
we
hey,
don't-
town, you take it. So
right.
Yeah.
that's
So
one of the
then,
reasons.
Doug, what are you saying? That we don't address Article 4?
Article.
Yeah, I think if you really want to simplify it, some of the stuff relative to the new
Article 2.
construction could probably come out to simplify it.
For the time being, yeah, until we get another cemetery.
Article 4, you're talking about cross that on?
No, well,
Article
So-
2,
I thought,
oh, yeah.
it's mixed in different places,
Yeah.
right? So you'd have to go
It is.
through and see which places pertain, because there are some things in Article 4 in terms of what you can or can't do in cemeteries that you probably want.
yeah, there's a couple of things in here that, under, was it C? Article 4, rules and regulations, C 2 and 3. One of them says you can place glass vases and glass cracks by the grave. And the next one says you can't. So, I mean, it's, and I wouldn't think we'd want a lot of glass stuff around granite stones. Because guys are gonna be mowing over broken glass and, it kind of, well, it needs work, obviously.
So then if we're talking about the construction piece, is that the right way to say it? The construction of it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that should be taken out? Is that something that could be done outside of this committee by someone on staff and come back to the committee with a modified version? Or is
Yeah,
it
we
something
can
we
do
should
that.
do?
No, we can remove, yeah, we can take a stab at it.
Okay. So then the other question I had, oh, Tom, I'm sorry, I don't mean, you were in.
Do you want me to continue or you want to take it?
Well, I got more under Article 4.
I've got some more under 4 as well.
Go ahead. I'll follow you.
Okay, and other, as I mentioned, under D, we got to show sketches. Under item 5 on page 5, still under Article 4, I don't know why we have to have inscriptions only in English letters, not that why are we being discriminatory? After approval by the cemetery committee, do we really care what language it's in? And under 5, that's under item number 5 on page 5.
Yeah.
And under E, can we put may instead of shall. Is it statutory that there are concrete, steel, or fiberglass vaults that preserve? Which is stupid to me. Unless that's a statute, I think.
I think
we-
that'd be a statute.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is a statute, but if we're gonna
Really?
take out the
Yeah.
construction pieces, let's just strike the whole thing.
Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, we can just,
Okay, so we cannot do what they call natural burials in
Correct.
New York State?
That's correct. Yes.
Well,
Wait a minute. they
there
have-
are
you can if
places
you
that do.
pay.
There's certain, you
Yeah.
have to go through the Department of Health.
Yeah.
There are certain regulations you have to follow
Yeah.
if you wish to go down that road.
Okay, I would stick with number 5 then. I don't care what language somebody wants to be memorialized. Item G,
Hold
why
it, I got one for F.
F?
Yeah, right about a cremation.
Mhm.
Is it gonna be done by the town?
Mhm.
We dig the hole. Now,
Correct.
we don't bury.
So I'm, what do we do with this?
We.
Staff will take a look at this.
Strike that in addition to D and E.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this would be a construction issue.
F. If we have F number 1, regular, what the hell is regular? I say, if you're gonna say one whole body and one remains, should probably be clarified instead of regular. What the hell's regular?
What about extra large?
Or maybe a
What about
casket.
small and extra large?
Yeah, it should be at the scale. G, why is there no prepayment for burial services? I thought that's fairly common, isn't it? Item G. Prepayment, no prepayment.
There's a,
Many
like,
funeral homes do that.
yeah, where you buy like multiple lots, and the reason for that is that it could, there's no real end date for that. It's-
Don't
it
care.
leaves
If
things
it
wide
remains
open.
vacant forever, who cares? So why would we care whether there's a prepayment for the?
But like this section pertains like if we were to have to take over to Pine Bank, right? So if we're gonna strike that section anyway, we just get rid of that.
yeah,
Okay,
we can, Tom, we can go through anything related to internments and take those out, construction. And then come back with a different version. Would that be
Yeah, I'll
helpful?
definitely do that. I think let's address where the concerns are, and then we'll take that
Okay.
stuff out.
Mhm.
page 6, item M2. The last piece there, you can't put rocks in cemetery grounds. I'm trying to think of the name of the family that's in the Academy Cemetery. They're Jewish, and people throw rocks or don't throw
Oh.
rocks,
Mhm.
place rocks, and they were both doctors.
Yeah. My family is of Jewish descent, and we have that same tradition. It's
Yeah.
a small stone.
I
I
mean,
think here we could
That's-
focus on decorative stones.
it doesn't
Because
say
I
that.
would, it says decorative stones or rocks. I think the idea is like if you buy a stone, like you can buy a garden stone and put names and dates and that kind of thing. I think we don't want something like that to be installed. That would need to be mowed over, damaged,
Out
and
of the way
someone come
from
back
the-
from us.
That's-
Exactly, but I think a small stone on the headstone certainly isn't invasive, so we could take out the rocks portion.
Okay,
Try to stay in order here, just so we don't jump around. I have one up a little higher, which is item number I.
on page,
My pages aren't numbered, so.
page
It
5.
starts with the town board reserves the right.
You got it.
All right, down, second sentence, it says, the town board shall have the right to enter upon or use any adjoining grave or lot to carry out its responsibilities. What does that mean?
So if you gotta go in and you got 2 people buried side by side, and there's an empty one in the middle,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go across one of them to dig the hole.
Is that what
That's the way
that
I
means?
interpret it. I don't.
I interpreted lot to mean neighboring property.
No, I
think
do
it's-
not believe that
I
is.
think
the-
it should-
Wolverine
it should
should
say
be.
plot.
Hire a lawyer,
Yeah,
Jim.
I think that actually just added a P.
Ambiguity.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a plot, not a
Plot
lot.
rather than lot?
Yeah, the intention is not the neighboring parcels. If it
Okay,
makes
good.
sense.
Good. Okay, good. Tom, back to you.
Where were we?
We're on rocks.
On the last page, which is page 7, and whoever does these things, we should number pages anytime we get them. Under penalties and offenses, a fine not exceeding $25 is not a deterrent to
I
anybody.
thought the same thing.
I mean, why waste your time having make it $1,000 or something if you really care. And that's it. And I think
there a
cemeteries in
state law
general
that-
are ridiculous.
For a maximum.
I'm not aware.
We never-
Let's
we
dig
couldn't
into
tell.
that.
Yeah, let's
Find
find out.
out if there is
A
a
max.
maximum on that, but I
Spread the
agree.
lake, throwing you out in the lake.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll abandon you on the island in the sense.
Full Island or what?
Ooh.
It's a new island.
The
right?
new island.
What is
No
the
longer
new name?
Scannell.
Yeah, okay, quiz time. What is the new name for the island?
It's
Scannell.
Skiddo.
Skenoh.
Scannell Island.
Yeah, it's like, thank you, gratitude.
Okay, I'll commit that to memory, right? Hi.
Hi.
Scannell.
But the city hasn't,
I think Doug used a dirty word.
city hasn't changed the plaque down there yet. So.
So do you have a
I'm not on a
recommendation
pyramid.
on the
Still
fine?
sits in.
On a fine?
On the
Well,
fine,
it's just $25 is not a deterrent and it's ridiculous. Make it a year imprisonment and $1,000.
Well, that's a not to. that's a not to-
Actually, I was just looking at the penalties that's actually in the code, you guys. We can just reference this section. That way the judge has all the same stuff. Shall be in accordance with chapter 221-14.
What was that?
He's gonna take care of it.
Oh, good.
We're gonna reference the current
Town code.
penalties, which allow the judge to determine the fine.
Irish
Judge
people.
Pearl.
For Jones, don't
Or
put Jones,
Jones.
it'll be higher.
Chop off their hand.
It depends on what,
It
if
does depend.
it's traffic, it's not, but
They're both very,
they're.
they're both very well trained at determining that. Let's let them do what they do.
Great you're here, Chris. We got a bunch of questions for you.
How come?
You should have stayed up there for a few more minutes.
Staff meeting, right?
No,
No.
no, but we are
You're a
gonna,
few
you
minutes
We are-
can
early.
stay.
You can stay.
We're
Yes,
gonna
we do
abandon
have
you.
another meeting starting in 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
We're done anyway.
Thought it was late.
So does that complete the comments you guys have brought and concerns on the?
Yeah, if we gotta have rules. Make them understandable,
You can come in,
enforceable.
Mhm.
come on in, it's okay. Well, it will be in
We're
5
leaving.
minutes.
You are at the right place.
So we'll invite Sarah Linda to the next, is that the goal? Is that, what do
I
we
think
wanna do?
Sarah Linda, her group or the subcommittee. Their dilemma is how much they can get from the town board to maintain, preserve.
Well,
It's
dilemma.
it's not gonna be the charter of the organization. It's gonna be who makes it up and how much money they get to spend.
well, yeah, there's a lot, I mean, the bulk of the money that's spent in the cemeteries now is mowing.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do that no matter what, whether there's a
That's.
separate committee or
Yeah,
whatever. So,
we're not gonna, I don't envision that the town board is going to. It would be a bottomless pit
no,
to start
no,
rehabbing. Things from the Hun family 300 years ago.
when Ray initially brought in his concern about the deterioration of some of the headstones at Hunt Cemetery. I mean, it took a couple of years before there was any real funding that we put together to, do some preservation, restoration, all of that work. I would think that going forward, it would be a similar thing. We
Yeah.
take it in small chunks every year, you know,
And
the worst cases first and, you know, like that.
exactly. I foresee this group being able to put together just a little better organization
Yeah.
of how those funds are being spent. Because right now, there's very little to determine which headstones are a priority for maintenance. And this group would be tasked with an inventory that would be put together and keeping track of how that funding is being used. So we're not maintaining maybe the same headstone every 3 years in a row. We're actually making sure that everything in a wider scope is being managed in an organized fashion.
It's an expensive proposition to try to take the old ones and make them new again. It's almost,
You
Unless
think
you
you could
encase them
find
in
5
something.
people willing to serve?
I
them?
think that's sacrilege.
You
should
do?
Let it
Okay.
let it go dust to dust.
That could be a challenge in itself. Yeah. But if you have names, addresses,
Addresses.
security numbers?
Are we locking them in? I think John's, are you gonna volunteer?
No.
you should go take care of John's cemetery.
It's kind of good.
Oh, you do know what you're back there. don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How many headstones are there?
dozens.
Really?
There's probably quite a few that you don't even see, right? There's-
It's very difficult for me to get back in there, so my wife and my kids have been back in there, but I can only get next to the cemetery itself, so I can't tell you exactly. I mean, they've taken some pictures of some of the headstones. You know, we've identified that there's somebody there from like 1865 or 1867, but yeah, I can't get in there, so.
With the growth of genealogy, there's been an increase too, as we know, Canada was a tourism spot and destination, and as families are looking into their genealogy more, we've seen an increase in interest in, you know, who is where. And
We have had one person knock on our door and said that they're a distant relative
Wow. Oh,
from one of the
really?
people and asked if they could walk back in there. You know, we had no issue with it whatsoever.
that's
Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. You know, I didn't think anybody would ever go back in there, but yeah,
exactly, right? There's really been an
yeah,
increase.
just one though.
They weren't putting any rocks around.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they damn well want. I don't care.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys so much.